One thing that Dan Infalt recently has started talking about is crunch rate, which is when you have a shooter buck within range, what is the percentage of kills that you have? So have you ever blown an opportunity? When you post that on the forum, I was thinking back. A couple years ago, I did shoot at it was a small buck, little forky or something like that, and he jumped the string, so I missed that one. That was 2 years ago. Besides that, I've never missed an opportunity at a buck. Granted, it's only my 4th year shooting bucks, so it's not like I have a lot of experience to draw back on when it comes to that. But besides that little buck, I've never had a buck that gets me excited, let's say, that I've had a missed opportunity. I've been very fortunate that the few that I have shot, I've been able to capitalize on those opportunities. This video is recapping the hunt from early January. I had my buddy Eric in from New York. He still had a Michigan tag left, so he came in and we wanted to go out for the January late season. So all that scouting, part 1 and part 2, was for this weekend. The wind was right to go in and hunt that birch tree that I found where I set up my camera, this clip here. So yeah, this birch, this is gonna be the tree. I marked another one over there just in case the wind was bad. But that's a good setup. I'm confident in that one. The wind was really good for the setup. Eric was kind of up on the ridge a little bit, overlooking a little bit of bedding. I was down in that birch that was kind of between those two bedding areas. So he was kind of covering behind me. I was kind of looking in front of me, kind of looking at two separate areas that were, really close. We were only probably 50, 60 yards apart, but kind of monitoring two main areas through there. About 9:45 or so, and he's like, "Hey, you about ready to get down?" He gives me a call, and as I'm on the phone with him, I saw movement, in the thickets ahead of me, and I was like, "Oh, I got a deer. Let me let you go." Saw the flash of a white antler, and that was about all I saw. I tried to get my binos up to see, couldn't find him in the thicket. When I pulled the binos down, I couldn't relocate that buck. So I was staring at that area for about 15 minutes or so, and you're always looking around, right? So I look over, and over my left shoulder, the tree's right here. I'm looking ahead. Over my left shoulder, I saw this big 10-point. It was only just in an instant that I got to look at it, but what I remember was thick, heavy beams, 10-point. Don't know how tall it was, don't know how wide he was, whatever. I just knew right away it was a shooter. I grabbed my bow, I turn on my GoPro, I turn on my phone camera on my Painted Arrow Mag Pro, and get my bow off the gear hook. My bow wasn't turned, so I didn't have any footage of it. And as I'm turning, I'm looking at this buck. He wasn't looking at me. He was gonna walk out that trail right by my camera, so I knew I was gonna have a perfect shot. As I turned, there was a little buck behind him. I just missed a really, really big buck. Grabbed my bow, and as I'm turning, there was a spike behind him that I didn't see. The spike looked up and picked me, and they bounded off. I'm shaking. Shit, that sucks. That was a big buck too. Oh, I'm in the birch that I scouted out. So I came in here, and I saw him when he was right here. So I turn over, and that spike must have been behind this. So he moved here, the spike moved here, he picked me, and they ran out. Oh, that gutted me. And that really, really hurt, because I think that would have been my biggest buck that I've ever shot. I don't know how big he was, but I know that he was definitely a mature buck that I was after. It was kind of the first major blown opportunity that I've ever had, especially on a big buck. So that really hurt. Took me a while to overcome that. I was kind of a wreck the rest of that day.
done with the morning hunt, heading back for some lunch. Eric behind me. Realized today, first deer I've ever seen in January, so that's a positive. But since I've killed my first buck a few years ago, that was the first buck that I've ever had in range and opportunity on that I didn't kill. So that hurts. Always hurts to fail, but looking on the bright side, the positive of I scouted, I found the deer, and it paid off. I was right. So that makes me feel good, even though I don't have one on the ground right now. So we have a good plan for the evening. Gonna go back into that same area. Just a little bit more up into that corner. And see if those two come cruising back through or what ends up happening. But very, very successful morning. Very happy with it. Out here for the evening hunt. Chris and Eric are scouting out a couple of trees for those two to sit in. I'm hanging back because I know where I'm going, so I'm just kind of chilling. I went out and scouted a couple little beds out there where they're going to look for a tree. My thoughts from this morning are still beating myself up for that. You know, I don't really know what happened, why they spooked. I mean, obviously the little deer picked me, but first blown opportunity at a buck ever. And it sucks. It's hard. So I'm gonna try not to let that affect my evening hunt, so I can give it everything I have and hopefully be successful. So it's about 1:30, we got 4 hours of legal light left. So plenty of time to take our time to get up into a tree. Yeah, it's gonna be a good evening. When I spooked them off, they ran up here. What I'm set up on now appears to be a nice little bedding area. We got pines, it's nice and thick, it's up on a ridge. So it looks good. I am 35 feet off the ground, and I'm looking over like this bowl that's behind me. So I am really high up. I'm not really sure where they're gonna come out of, but I think they're gonna come out of that bedding area straight ahead of me. That's where those bucks were working, walking this way, and everything else kind of that way is pretty wide open. It's just that thick part right there. So wanted to get as high as I possibly could. One, to get out of deer's line of sight, but two, as I started to climb, I realized this ridge is a lot taller than I thought it was. It could be 20, 30 feet above the bottom of this bowl here. So wanted to get, try to get out of the deer's sight if they're coming out of that way. But if not, then even better, because I am way higher if they come from behind me. So I got my ring of steps on the tree, so I can swing around if I need to. Not really sure where they'll come out, but feeling good about this spot still. I was kind of bummed out earlier today. Still bummed out, but feeling confident. Hoping they do the same thing as this morning.
The rest of that night was uneventful. Didn't end up seeing any deer. Another buddy that was out with us, Chris, he had a doe working behind him. That was the extent of the Saturday hunt.
Day 2 of the hunt. I scouted out this area last year and saw some good late season movement. It is super, super thick in like this scrub brush marsh area. I tucked myself up into this spindly, like I can move, spindly little tree. Done with the morning hunt. Didn't end up seeing anything, but starting to scout now. And we followed the point or the peninsula all the way around to this oak island. And as we were going down the cattails, we saw splashing mud tracks through the snow and everything. So we knew that there was a buck running through here up on this oak island. That's what we're seeing. It's a decent sized track. Definitely came through like hours ago. But yeah. So this island's pretty interesting because you have really thick scrub brush, red brush, I don't know what it is here, cattails on the other side, and then a decent elevation change. So they're running this trail, the lower third, between the really thick transition here and this terrain. They're just scooting this, but there's tons of oaks on this island. It's a nice little spot, running right through. So we're just gonna keep following this track and see where it leads us. So here's that peninsula that comes out, so that connects to the rest of the public, and then it drops off and gets to this scrub brush here, and all of these, and it goes right to this island. And there's tons and tons and tons of runs. There's one here, there's one big one there. They all just come in, they all just filter in right to this island. So this is that island point type thing, and they all come in right here. So they all come in peninsula point to point, and then work their way up to the oaks. Back to the car, getting undressed. Got the jet boil going, chicken coconut curry, and cheesy chicken and broccoli for lunch. Out in the afternoon, not gonna hunt tonight, gonna stay home. Eric left a little early, so I'm gonna recoup, still feeling like crap. A little sick, but I'm at a private land piece that I got permission on this year. Never hunted it yet, I just walked around one time, so I'm kind of checking things out. And they have a trail around their property. And I've been following this buck print here. There's a doe coming the opposite way, going back towards the house, but I mean, this is a decent buck print, and it's very fresh too. Just snowed last night. The dirt, you can see the mud and stuff like that. So, and then the doe print goes here. So they both go this way. So I'm gonna mark this as a potential run. This is typically woods that I wouldn't gravitate towards on public land. But since it's private, there's gonna be no pressure, no one hunts here. So you hunt it a little bit different. You don't have to like get in the thickest of the thick to get away. Oh, there's deer. Yeah, there's 2 deer right there. Well, that's a good sign. And they're hauling ass out of here. Could be the ones that I saw the tracks from. But I mean, pressure is going to be 0. So things are going to be a little bit different here. So I'm just trying to find some travel routes, set a camera, and hopefully get 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever the opportunity gives me out here. Well, we'll see what that teaches me. There was a pretty thick deer trail coming into, well, it could be hickory nuts, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think it was like I'm pretty sure this is a shagbark hickory. And there was a ton of nuts on the ground. So I could be feeding on that. I'm not quite sure, but set up a camera. If I get anything crossing through here, we'll see. I mean, obviously it's the middle of the day and those 2 deer are running. Look like they got spooked by something. Could have been me, of course, but so deer move through here. I don't know if they're as patternable as public land. So I gotta figure out.
A few days later, I went back to the permission piece that I secured this year. So I went and hunted this guy's property. He owns 10 acres and 4.5 of it's wooded. It's pretty much all hickories in there, and they are so many nuts on the ground. So I figured the deer would have enough food to be moving through there. He says there's a ton of deer that he sees every single day. So I was like, okay, cool. You know, this is gonna be good. He was out in his backyard working on the tractor, and he shoots me a text: "Deer coming your way." And I was watching up ahead. I was watching about 10 does, fawns, a group of them work through, you know, about 100 yards away. And I was like, yeah, they're too far. I'm not going to be able to see them. Right after that, I saw him coming in right from what he said. So I was looking at one herd. He was talking about another herd. So I hit the record as they're working their way through. Before this hunt, my wife noticed that I take 3 arrows out in the woods. That's what I've always hunted with, is 3 arrows, right? And she goes, "What if you miss?" And I was like, "Oh, you cursed me," right? So we were joking about that. So I had that in the back of my head, of course. So these deer come in, and I pick out the biggest one. And, you know, there's 10 to 15 deer within 50 yards of me. It was nuts. So I pick out the biggest one, circle around, drew back, hit a branch. There goes my arrow. They scatter, not too far, start coming back in. Kept my eye on the big one. She worked her way around about 30 yards away, drew back, shot, hit a branch. You've got to be kidding me. My wife just totally cursed me, right? I've only had deer jump my string, duck the string. I've never like missed hitting a branch or anything like that. So I was shaken, just wrecked. I mean, adrenaline highs, adrenaline lows, all these deer around me. You know, I was trying to be still because there's so many sets of eyes looking around. For whatever reason, this spot was just hot. So they, you know, 10 minutes later start working their way back in, and it's like, okay, they're relaxed. Like they're not that scared. They're not pressured deer. Like this is not what I'm used to. I'm not used to having it this easy, right? So she works her way back in, and I'm like, I'm going to wait for perfect broadside shot. 20, 25 yards, whatever it may be. I am going to be patient. So I was just sitting there, waiting. She starts to work her way out, draw back. Nope, didn't give me a good shot. Let down. Okay. Wait. Looks like she's coming out, draw back. It didn't end up giving me a good shot because any sort of twig or branch or anything like that, I was not about to risk it. I had one arrow left. that was it. So she finally came to another shooting lane, drew back. She takes a step out, perfect broadside. Let her have it. I think I was gripping my bow a little bit too much. I hit her a little far back the lungs type thing. So I see her, because it's wide open, kind of wide open woods. So I saw her. She was standing there. You know, the back was hunched. And all of a sudden, kind of fell over.
That was the craziest hunt of my life. I had like 20 deer around me. I took 3 shots and pulled back 6 total times. But at least I got one.
So I, didn't give her the time. My car was right there. So, and he was out in his backyard, and I, shot the deer. He's like, all right, I'll grab the tractor. So he came back out, and as I, went up, grabbed my arrows, and as I was going up to her, her tail was still flickering. Shit, she's still alive. So, grabbed an arrow, drew back, put one through her head to finish it off, and it really sucks when a deer suffers that long. 10 minutes of suffering is unacceptable in my book. When you let them wait 30 minutes or half hour, 2 hours, whatever it may be, they're bedded down, dying. Like that's the worst feeling. You want to hit them. You want to hit them right. You want them to die in 10 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it may be. So she was still alive 10 minutes afterwards, and that really sucks. That doesn't really feel good. It takes away from the moment. It takes away from the joy of the harvest, because you made that animal suffer. So put her out of her misery. She was laying there. Landowner comes out in his tractor and he's like, "Hey, got a beer for you." I'm like, "Ah, cool." So we sat there and cracked a beer, talked for a minute, told him the story, what happened. He was just laughing, and loaded her up in the bucket, threw her in the back of the car, and headed home. So the January late season has been successful, but not in the way that I wanted it to. I wanted a buck, so I still have that buck tag in my pocket. Had that opportunity on the big buck, couldn't capitalize on it, but I'm running low, or I don't have enough meat for the year, so I need some does. So I'm very, very grateful for the landowner to give me permission. Very grateful for that doe. Got a good amount of meat out of her. January scouting paid off. I was very, very successful with that.